Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first ever webinar as Smart Citizenship. This is Ahmet Şener speaking from our Istanbul offices, and today I will be joined by my colleagues Nedim Russo and Pelin. Nedim is right here with me, and Pelin is attending from our Athens offices.
Hello, everyone.
Certainly very exciting to do this, but I'm afraid the presentation is kind of gloomy since we will be talking about the ongoing, let's say, banking crisis and how it relates to people seeking secondary citizenship or residencies. So basically, I will be covering what happened in March that is super relevant to the entirety of the banking industry. I will be discussing the ongoing effects, some numbers, some backstory as to why this banking crisis started. And finally, of course, I will be sharing my insights on how we can protect ourselves, basically, from the ongoing crisis. So let me share my presentation real quick. And just one second. I assume everyone can see my screen. So basically, of course, a bit of a marketing gimmick that we named the webinar, Global Banking Crisis at the Door. It's technically an ongoing crisis. And so what happened in March? So by now, I think all of us know, two banks imploded in the USA in March. One is the Signature Bank and Silicon Valley Bank. So the root cause of this bank failure is basically their mismanagement of their bond portfolio. I will get a bit deeper on this and why it happened the way it did. Was it avoidable? I think, of course, but most financial institutions are blindsided by what is currently taking place in the world, in the, let's say, post-COVID world. And on top of, to put insult to injury, the horribly mismanaged Credit Suisse finally collapsed, and is right now in the process of being force-fed to UBS. And there's a new mega bank born out of this. And it's a systemically important bank. And this new mega bank will make it even more systemically important. And I will discuss why it's a bigger problem for all of us in the next slide. So what happened? The widely acclaimed by investment managers, the safest investment in the world, US Treasury bonds, they became toxic due to inflation. A lot of the result of COVID bailout packages, everything that has been done to keep the economy alive, it resulted in inflation, and these banks were stuck basically with 30-year treasuries that ranged between almost 1% return to 2.5% return. So basically, so what does this mean? It means they cannot go to market and liquidate these easily. So if they need more money, they need to borrow more. And it's not very good environment, because in order to suppress the inflation that came from the environment created by COVID, Fed is increasing rates. Because it's a very basic economical theory, but I want to reiterate it here. The theory goes that the more expensive it is to borrow money and carry debt on your credit card, people will spend less, companies will spend less, and magically we will have less inflation. But of course, nobody is considering a recession when they are doing this. So end story is, in the short run, inflation will still be high. It's very hard, and it will be very hard to borrow money for the banks. And their bond portfolios were illiquid. So what happened was that these three rather large financial institutions, they became insolvent, and they were absorbed partially by bailout and partially by private sector intervention to other institutions. But let's look at what the damage was. Because when you say, oh, 2 banks, 3 banks failed, no deposits were lost, it looks like another day at the party, but it's not. The 2023 bank crisis, and it's an ongoing process, resulted in the biggest monthly loss in bank deposits in US history. It's 389 billion lost in just 1 month. Of course, this money is not evaporating. Its deposit is escaping to other routes, but it's making banks less and less liquid. So, but just one side word of why we are focusing on USA. In Turkey, we have an expression that when USA sneezes, in Turkey we get pneumonia. So it goes for the entirety of the world. Developing countries, Pelin is smiling right now because Greece was hit hardest by the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis. These guys had no fault. They had some faults, let's say, but they didn't deserve a full economic meltdown. It was just the ripple effect. So that's why I'm focusing on the situation in the USA. A bit more things to put everything into perspective for all of us, because I think people are not looking at the numbers. People are just looking at the media. People are discussing, is the bank crisis over? It's not. Mainly because, just look at this. We are already at the level of 2008, this massive global financial meltdown we called back then. We're at the same level of assets involved in bank failures. So look at this. So at the peak, it was 373 billion in 2008, 2007 and 8, let's say. And right now we are already back to 300, let's say 20 billion of failures. And it's only two banks this time because the economy is larger. There has been more inflation, yes. And that's why numbers are a little bit worrying. So the root cause of the problem for these banks is inflation, because Fed needs to play tough with the world due to inflation to manage the inflation, and inflation is making everything hard to manage. And at the beginning, that it was a like choice between, are we going to let people starve during COVID? Are we going to let businesses die, or are we going to give them basically free money? So it resulted in inflation. So of course, as a Turkish-born person, inflation is not something we are afraid of, let's say, because we know how to live with it. Same levels of inflation anywhere in the world, and I think people would be in streets. But I keep making this joke. As a kid, I was more worried about the inflation monster rather than monsters under my bed, because those monsters under my bed, they weren't eating into my family's deposits. So we understand what a big problem this is, but it's quite new to this generation. And the bad thing is, inflation comes in waves. And right now, the tough love by Fed isn't helping it. So as you see, we're just at the downturn of the first wave. But of course, there is no guarantee it will happen the same way as it happened in the 70s, but most likely, perhaps in a faster manner, perhaps in a less with less peaks, it will most likely happen the same thing. So due to inflation, the bonds the banks are holding at a large number, it applies to people too, are illiquid. So, but let's go back a bit in time as well. How did we get out of this in the first place, the first crisis? Because it was rather large and quite intimidating. I think it's nothing compared to what we are going through right now, because I will mention why. So how did we get out of this? So number one big formula was printing money. US government printed a lot of money to protect the financial system. I don't blame them. It looked like a very good solution at the time. They increased government spending. Well, government spending is something I usually frown upon, basically, because there's a lot of waste over there. But yes, it does put stimulus to the economy. And they did a lot of other irresponsible stuff. So they gave a lot of free, almost cheap money to the lenders. And in turn, they encouraged the lenders, the banks, to give more money to companies and individuals who were almost free to do anything they want with it. But most of the results are, I don't want to say unfortunately, but the big companies that were born out of this, let's say, stimulus package, they are Amazon. They help you spend your money more efficiently, but by efficiently I mean you spend more. It was like social media structures that were overfunded, so nothing to stand the test of time. So they are already laying off people. So, but we have some constraints right now. We cannot get out of this crisis as we got out of the last one. I'm not saying the last one was easy. I'm saying we had some formula to get out of it. So number one, we can't print any more money. During COVID, Fed did their utmost best, I'm sure, to limit the emission of money, but they ended up printing at the first part of the fight 3 trillion. So their balance sheet increased to 7 trillion. Now, these are massive numbers. $1 trillion is something incomprehensible. So, and they 1 trillion is something incomprehensible, and 3, I don't know how to define how large this sum is. So I will not try. So basically, we can't do this now. You cannot keep interest low. You cannot create more stimulus. You cannot encourage banks to. So when you, how does everything work? Banks find loans from position X. It could be the Fed, it could be me if I'm rich enough. So we bankroll them, and then they give debt to other people at the lower level, companies, people. They can even give debt to sovereign wealth funds. So this time we can't do this for super cheap. So because what happens when you give cheap money, there will be inflation. We already have inflation. So if we print and give free money right now, what's going to happen? It has the potential to trigger more inflation, which is hyperinflation at this point. So, and then, of course, there is the added risk for the USA and rest of us who follow the dollarized system. Money markets might shift to other currencies with higher interest. If you don't keep increasing your rates, people will go to yuans, God forbid, rubles, other potential currencies. So we can't do this as well. And there's one more final rule. In this graph, I shared USA Strategic Petroleum Reserve. It's going down super fast. I'm not going to say it's unprecedented. It's lowest since the beginning of 80s. But while you are trying to sort everything out, we have this additional constraint. You cannot buy any energy from Russia, and neither can your trade partners. So we're not discussing this. So we're not supposed to do this as well. So it's another constraint. Just because, so one of the biggest suppliers of energy, if we do not buy energy from them, it will get more expensive. So it will be another trigger to inflation. Remember, we were trying to manage inflation and not making it worse. So basically, we can't do this as well. And to make matters most worrisome, there is another time bomb built inside the system yet again. This time, it's not residential mortgages, just like in 2007, 8, 10 subprime mortgage crisis, but this time it's commercial mortgage. Banks are absurdly levered, and they're so basically, if these loans were to fail, it will consume all of their capital, let's say. So there is no way out of this. And commercial mortgages, 500 billion of debt will come due each year for the next 5 years. And just I want to show you this very small drop in lending. So when loans mature, you have either paid them off, which is very unlikely in commercial mortgages, commercial real estate mortgages, because it's offices, it's retail, the worst hit parts of the real estate economy were bankrolled by using this. During COVID, they lost a lot of value. People are vacating their offices. Everybody is downsizing in offices. So you cannot get new tenants. The lending is decreasing. Defaults are rising. Prices of real estate is collapsing. This translates into another ticking time bomb. This will end up as a very bad result. This will end up being a very bad result for banks. So unless you can print money, which you can't, unless you can give cheaper loans, you cannot. So it's like a dilemma that we are stuck in. And one last thing, perhaps you remember this phrase, one last thing, from late Steve Jobs' new product launches. And we have another villain inside the show right now. Someone else is challenging the banks for their very weird way of doing business. So depositors pulled a lot of money from a few USA banks. And I'm not saying it's all connected. Charles Schwab had other problems. State Street and M&T, these are the banks that are hit heaviest as people pull 60 billion from them. And because there is a very rational player in the market, Apple, who is offering above 4% return for your saving. Just to put things in perspective, Wells Fargo would give your savings account a 0.15 yield, Bank of America 0.05. So they are attracting your cash to long-term investments, bonds, most of them, or they will deploy in other cases. Just that, so you do not keep it in cash. The more cash you have, the more cash we have, companies, individuals, the more of a threat we are to the system. But Apple, being a very massive disruptor of our lives with the introduction of smartphones, now I think they are moving to disrupt the banking system. This will have a very large body count. I think it's very much needed. Somebody needs to revolutionize the banking system to be more in service of the customers rather than in service of people who the banks are lending money to. Because you know the famous expression, if you owe a bank 100,000 USD, it's your problem. But if you owe the bank 100 million USD, it's the bank's problem. So banks are naturally serving the people they lend money to. So, and now we have another competitor. So this will most likely be the next guys who will be bailed out or another have some problems. But I gave this example to just show you how crazy we are getting by getting second-handed information, not our own research, but research that comes from the media. So Charles Schwab, these guys took, they lost massive deposits. They lost an insane amount of deposit and their stock increased. As they, on the 17th of April, their stock increased. Of course, this is a very cherry-picked view. Their stock was 85 USD and it dropped to 50. So I'm just showing you this green graph showing they rallied. So it's not that bad, huh? It's that bad. But you can just cherry pick data. You can just zoom into graphs and show, you can use logarithmic graphs to show a financial institution who lost 30% of their deposits in the green. So, of course, the joke going around in the banking world is that anything less than failure for this corporation is a success. So that's why their stocks increased. So what's the verdict here? Just like in 2008, the bankers lied. They buried their losses in the footnotes of balance sheets. They did a lot of creative accounting and they were able to hide it. But look at this graph. Unrealized gains, but of course, in this case, it's unrealized losses on investment securities. We are close to minus 600 billion of losses that is not active yet. So I think we can see where this is going, unless a Deus ex machina. Since we will be talking about Greek golden visa, let's talk about their system. Unless a Deus ex machina changes everything, this is where we're going. So we're on the verge of another collapse. You cannot take anything for granted in such a complex environment. You cannot count on new loans. You cannot count on your investments yielding more than the inflation. And all of us will lose money. The new target right now for individuals, companies, financial institutions is to lose less money than the others. This is it. And smaller and more flexible players will navigate, while even giants, while more dependent on flush cash, will fall. But don't take this the wrong way. I'm not saying larger banks will fare worse as compared to smaller banks. I don't mean this at all. If you want some advice on that front, just check risky assets versus their entire capital. So if the risky assets the banks have is a large portion of their paid-in capital, then you can worry. So what can we do? I promised everyone I invited some quick fixes, easy wins on how to navigate this very complex, let's say, 3 to 5 year period, unfortunately. So this won't be something short term again. And for the developing world, it might end up eating a decade even. So do not lock your money in long-term treasuries. You will be very encouraged by financial consultants. You will be very encouraged by your banker, your private banker, but do not go there. If they tell you inflation is going to be so much better, so you will still see net positive yields, they're lying. It won't go like that. So with the current data we have, of course, it won't. So get in a position. You can move your tax base very conveniently as well, because almost all the time, this kind of economic meltdowns results in more taxes. You may get taxed to poverty. And don't forget, you're already being passively taxed by inflation because you have X amount of currency. The government is mismanaging it. You are losing part of your purchasing power. This is a hidden tax. By their inefficiencies, they're mismanaging your money and you're getting taxed. On top of that, if you incur higher VAT, if you incur higher corporate income tax, capital appreciation tax, it's going to result in you it's going to put you in a very tough position. So you need to be ready to move where you can be taxed less. Of course, it takes a lot of planning. So what else do we do? Do not consider the USD a safe haven. You need to be creative. I'm not telling you to go from USD to another currency. Most likely they will suffer the same fate, but you need to be actively investing. You need to be smart. Short-term, quick wins, you have to do. If you want to stay ahead of the curve. If you stand still, you're going to fall. And on top of this, apart from financial investments, you need to make real money. You need to create wealth for yourself in multiple jurisdictions. You have to be really global. Your company has to be global. If you're in one market, either way. So I love this about some players. They invest only in one country, but because they are fundraising from the outside, they call themselves multi-market. That's not how it works. You need to be deploying investments and raising money from all around the world to become global. So a final thing that you can do is you need to decrease dependency on outside capital and loans. So because they may be very hard to come by in the coming few years. So I'm very close to finishing. It has been quite me talking for a long time. So a very good recipe for success and navigation would be to increasing your business bases. So get incorporated and banked like tomorrow in the EU, in the United Arabian Emirates, and pick one unorthodox market for you. What do I mean by this? Most people ask me, what is unorthodox market? It's somewhere that you would not go normally. So I admit Turkey is one of these. Go establish a company in, I don't know, Malaysia. Go establish a company in South Africa. I know they have a lot of capital transfer issues as well, but you need to diversify. You need to create your solution before you need it. Because when you need it, it's too late. And you won't know what to do. Get multiple bases for personal and family use, because you might want to just pack up and leave. Because in order to be less in an advantageous position in terms of taxing, you need to move physically your tax base, so you need to be ready. Create tax shields in Malta, Portugal, and United Arab Emirates. Malta and Portugal as well, they are very overlooked, but they have amazing tax incentives in place, and they are very conveniently designed not to step on the toes of your home base as well. Get better at your core business. Now is not the time to make mistakes, as I hope I've managed to prove it, because the crisis in the USA, it will come back and bite us in the back. And you need to distribute your wealth in a high anonymity jurisdiction and use multiple banking systems. And these banks you choose, as I said, as I told, their risky assets need to be a very small part of their balance sheet. Apple is an amazing example, by the way. They have zero risky assets. They will just keep your deposits. They will use it for their company. And what they are paying you is still a bit less than the inflation, but it's at least close. You will lose less money. So you need to distribute your banking basis. So, final words. You need to also move out of historically high crime countries, because this will, at some point, turn into crime. If you're in the USA, you need to move to a state or a city with less crime. I will not discuss this. Now is not the time to take risks. Financial fraud and mismanagement of your funds by your private bankers, wealth managers, this will increase. People will need to hide their mistakes. And when people try to hide their mistakes, it spells disaster for the investors. And I'm very sorry to say, lots of fund managers and fund promoters, they will end up behind bars, because at some point they will cross the line in order to cover for their losses. But most likely, if the strategy was wrong in the first place, if they were not making money 3 years ago, they will not make money today. That ship has sailed. If they did not have a good cash flow in the past 3 years, if you did not have a good cash flow in the last 3 years, it's over. You might have to start over again. And finally, just educate yourself in financial self-defense. What do I mean by this? Predatory behavior from consultants will increase. Just yesterday, I heard one of our clients who did a golden visa with us, their banker managed to convince them to lock in their funds in a long-term bond. And it's a lot of money, let's say. And this kind of behavior, it's rewarded, unfortunately, in the system. So you have to know what you are paying, who is winning by your investment, and where it's happening. So thank you so much for listening. Now, I think my colleagues, Nedim and Pelin, have some straight, out of the box, nothing fancy, some usable tricks for you to employ to increase your basis. So I will stop sharing right now and let Nedim take over, I guess.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you for this insightful presentation and on tips what we need to do to secure our immediate and long-term future. I will share my screen to show my presentation, and I would like to give you an update on the situation in Portugal for the Portuguese Golden Visa, share some specifics about the program. but I will take more of my time on talking about the different types of investment and which ones investors should look for and obtain. So for those who don't know what a golden visa is, I think it's best to give a short intro. It's a residency by investment program, which means that you invest in a product. It could be real estate, it could be a fund investment, it could be something else. And the host country will provide you a residency permit, which in some cases can turn into a permanent residency or into a citizenship. So coming down to the country itself, which is one of the important reasons why a lot of investors choose to opt into such program, other than the benefits of the program itself. Portugal is a very competitive country in the business environment. It is a country which is very easy to do business. The government has a lot of incentives, and thus it attracts a lot of investment from different jurisdictions. It's a very, very safe country. It's the third safest country in the Global Peace Index. Its strategic location is very important. It's in the middle of the US and Europe. It's on the same time zone as the UK. So Lisbon and London are on the same time zone. That's very attractive. It has a very high skilled workforce. A lot of universities teach English speaking courses. And obviously the quality of life is very important. There's 300 days of sunshine per year, and it's one of the reasons which attracts old people in retirement stages. Quick facts about the program. The program was established in 2012. Until now, it has generated over 6 billion in investment. It's one of the most flexible golden visa programs in Europe. It has numerous investment types, and it allows investors to obtain permanent residency with only a minimum residency requirement. The process itself is remote. Investors do not need to travel to Portugal to obtain the residency. Only after they receive their pre-approval, they will need to travel for their biometrics appointment. Skipping on to the recent events. So on the 16th of February, there was an announcement by the Prime Minister during the housing bill that the golden visa will cease. There was a bill proposed, and it was supposed to be negotiated in the Parliament on 30th of March. On the 16th of March. On 9th of March, there was a new announcement, and the deadline was extended until the end of the month. On the 30th of March, the new housing bill was delivered, and from that we understood that the golden visa program will be converted to a general residence permit. On the 15th, so last week, there was the final written proposal was delivered, and on that proposal we understood that the golden visa program will close, but existing applications and new submissions will be kept and will be converted to a special visa called D2, which is an entrepreneurship visa. So right now, we believe that it will take around 45 days for the new law to pass. Until that time, investors have basically enough time to complete their investment and submit their application. So what are the benefits of the program, of the golden visa? Well, it gives you the right to live, work, and study in Portugal. It allows you access to the Schengen area. It allows you to get permanent residency after 5 years. It allows you to become part of a very attractive tax regime for a 10-year period. The program only requires you to spend 7 days per year in Portugal. It has very different types of investment options, from real estate to bank deposits to fund investments. And you can include your family members as well. It also allows you to apply for citizenship once you complete the 5 years and obtain your permanent residency. And with a Portuguese citizenship, you can travel to 186 countries. So what are the investment types? The most common options are real estate and fund investments. And they are split into different categories, which we will discuss after this slide. You have some less common options, which are the bank deposit route, which is 1.5 million. You have the donation routes into scientific research or into cultural research. And then you have the job creation or business creation routes. And one of the common ones from those is the 10 permanent jobs, where you will create 10 jobs for a 3-year period. So this is a map of Portugal, and we categorize the real estate investment into various different options. One of the distinctions is whether the investment is made in a low density area or it's made in a high density area. And by this, we mean any area that is above the 75% mark of the national GDP is considered a high density area. On the other side, on the right-hand side, we see a map where it is quite similar to the low and high density distinction. It is a new rule introduced in 2022, which forbids residential investments in the coast of Portugal, in the Silver Coast, basically. So what do we mean by a 280,000 euro investment in a low density area? So for an investment per product to qualify as a low density renovation product, the building itself must be older than 30 years. So these are some of the options that you can pick, which are quite common in the market. You have ground up developments, or you have single unit renovations, which you can opt into. In these products, usually the developer will take care of the renovation site, so the investor will not need to take care on that site. Here is 2 examples of more liquid investments, because they're located in either very close to Lisbon or in the Algarve, the south of Portugal. These investments are either new investments or they are existing investments, and there are investments that don't need renovations. So here's a simple table on the costs of the investment, comparing the real estate and the fund investment. The fund investment itself has less associated costs, startup costs, and on average, it's 5% less for a single person investing for the visa. If you can see, for the real estate, you have some additional taxes that you do not have to pay for the fund investment, which bumps up the total to 11% of the total investment. So if you're investing 500,000 euros, you will need to spend 55K more on your investment as costs. On the fund investment side, if you're investing 500K, which is the minimum, you will only need to spend 6% on top of your investment which includes all the government fees, all the legal costs, and all the taxes. Short summary on the attractive tax regime that investors can opt into. The regime is called non-habitual residency. It provides quite a bit of attractive tax schemes for Portuguese sourced incomes. For real estate, for example, you will only be taxed on 50% of your capital gains. On the fund investment side, your dividends are only taxed at 10%. And on any income earned from highly skilled employment, you will be taxed at 20% flat rate and not on any progressive rates. So for more info on this, please reach out to us and we can schedule a more detailed analysis of your case. So how does it work? How long does it take for you to reach your citizenship? So from the day you make your investment and you submit your application, it takes on average 1 year to receive your initial residency. After that, your first card lasts for 2 years. After the 2-year mark, you will renew it for a further 2 years. And after that, you will renew it for 1 year. Once your 5 years is over and you have your permanent residency, you can then apply for your citizenship, which takes around a year and a half to receive. So all in all, from the day you make your investment, it takes around 6.5 years to receive your citizenship. So what are the immediate steps to catch the deadline before the new law is effective? You must collect and prepare all the necessary documents to obtain your bank account, obtain your tax ID, and all the necessary documents to submit your application. What's the next step? You need to provide the necessary, you need to give the necessary POAs to your lawyer in Portugal to act on your behalf to apply for the tax number and open your bank account. Step 3 is to look at the investments, the products, decide which ones are a better fit for you, and shortlist the options. The 4th step would be to transfer the funds once your bank account opens. So your funds are ready in Portugal and you can execute your investment as soon as possible. I want to give a few key takeaways, especially from our experience in the immigration world and also for the Portuguese Golden Visa, is that you need to be prepared. If you want to catch your deadline, you need to organize your side of the process, which is collecting documents, getting the necessary apostilles, doing the necessary translations. You need to act swiftly. We only have 45 days until the deadline is over. So once you make a decision and once you think the program is right for yourself, start to collect your documents and start your process. Do your own research as well. There's a lot of information on the market. We will help you with everything, including the investment, including the document collection. But if there is anything that you're not sure about, please check online as well. And finally, you should keep it simple because this is an immigration investment. It's better to have only one investment and apply to the citizenship. That's all from my end, Ahmed.
All right, so I won't be taking much of the spotlight now. And I think, Pelin, if you're ready to jump in and give us some insights, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I will also share my screen just for Hopefully I can manage that. I think there's a problem here. And does it work? No. Maybe I can have some help from my colleague and put the.
Mert, can you share?
Yes, please.
Somehow the Greece report, I think. So
it's okay. I just wanted to keep it in the screen. We were not going to read it from that. So I want to give some general information about Greek Golden Visa. Although it started around 2013, it became popular and quite well known after 2018. And since then, all the graphics are going upwards because I know there's this Greek economy, and Greece generally have the reputation to be, after the crisis, that they had the severe effects. Right now, they are doing pretty well, actually, and we are so proud of the whole country, because the whole country and the state and the people itself working towards a better future, we can say. And for many years, our closest competition was Portugal. So there are a lot of common features that we can talk about in the Greek Golden Visa program. And in scale-wise, also Greece is somehow similar to Portugal. But what we can point out what are the differences that differentiates the Greek Golden Visa from the others. So with the in the future, we believe that Greek Golden Visa will be even more popular because of the minimum requirement for the Golden Visa programs in Europe. It has, like, Greece is very competitive. And although there will be a change in the minimum investment requirement during this year, but there will be still opportunities for every kind of investment options that will be available in the market. So what we can get when we invest for Greek Golden Visa in Greece, the most popular road for investment is the real estate. And at the moment, the minimum investment requirement for properties are 250K. And the one above investment requirement, one higher, is the 400,000 bank deposit, which means only that you start, you open a bank account in Greece, and you deposit your funds to your Greek bank account, and they remain there. With this way, you can obtain Golden Visa. There are more other options, but at this point, they are not really available in the market. So we can give details on request about the other investment options. The key benefits for Greek Golden Visa is, as we have mentioned earlier, it provides visa-free access in the Schengen zone for its holders. The minimum requirement to stay in the country is 0 days. So the investors has no, it is not compulsory for them to live or stay in Greece in a year. But they can also enjoy to spend as much as time in Greece during a year. And the procedure is quite a fast track, I can say. And it can be done 100% remotely. So with a given power of attorney in the country of residence of the investor, to a Greek partner in Greece, the whole process can be done while they are in their countries. As we said, one of the let's say benefits that happened during COVID with this in this program, that almost everything is digitalized. So it is really, it made the procedure, the application procedure really fast. Of course, a lot of things are done by the Greek lawyer of the investor. Who can benefit from the program? When we have a main investor, the investors himself and his parents and their spouse and parents of their spouse, and if they have children under 18 years old, they can also benefit from the golden visa. And the golden visa holders and the beneficiaries have right to have access to education, national education, and healthcare. I will also go here. The eligibility requirements are really very easy and straightforward for the main investor. For dependents, it's even easier. One thing we really need to show while we are applying for golden visa is the source of funds. That we have to prove that the source, the funds were obtained legally, and they are already in the banking system. And this part is done by the Greek banks. So the background check of the financial background check of the investor is done by the Greek banks. The Greek golden visa is evolving, as said. We can go to the next page. There will be a change in the real estate investment option during this year. The whole change will be completed this year. There will be geographic limitations. So for the certain areas, the minimum investment requirement will be increased to 500,000 euros from 250. But these locations are limited with Athens municipality, so Athens city center, we say, Thessaloniki municipality, and Santorini Island and Mykonos Island. So very popular location for real estate investment is Athens, and we can specifically mention the areas in Athens that are northern suburbs, central Athens, and southern suburbs of Athens. Can be seen in the map. It's a little too small, but we can explain in detail later. Thank you. Also, the required documents are quite easy to prepare. The documents needed for the investor to be prepared in the country of residence. So they have to prepare certain documents in their country. And after the real estate purchase is done, some documents will be collected in Greece. And the documents need to be prepared in the country of residence are mostly for opening a bank account, which is basic personal data and the source of funds. As we said, Greece is a relatively small country, but a very nice Mediterranean climate. And the biggest sector in Greece is the tourism. So when we make a property investment, we can let our investment to serve in the tourism sector. Greece gives the right to make income, to obtain income from the property that we purchase for golden visa requirement. So we have option to let the property for a long-term lease, or it can be, it is legally possible to have the property leased in the short term and operated like a short-term rental. So this is what we can do with our investment. After we purchase, we obtain our golden visa, and what happens to my property is either operated or rented in a long term. So I want to keep it short because we've been already presenting you a lot of information. We are always open to give more details in one-to-one in our one-to-one sessions. Please feel free to contact us after the webinar, that we can provide with information on with the material that we have shown already, or for specific questions, feel free to book an appointment with us, and we can give more extended information about our services.
So I already received some questions. So I would love to answer them right now, and feel free to fill out the Q&A section just on the bottom side of the screen in case you have any more. So I will just give quick answers, don't worry, and so that we can wrap up the webinar. So I talk because I think I'm one of our attendees wrote, how much yield can I expect in general investments? So it's a very good question, because I cried a bit too much about yields, I guess, when giving you the first presentation. So it depends. In Portugal, the yields are a bit more modest in these cases. So up to 4% gross yields are quite common. But in Greece, especially Athens downtown, if you want to get creative, we can find you daily rental eligible, let's say, units, and your yearly yields would be 7.5%, basically. Of course, don't forget, don't compare direct rental yields with financial yields, because your property, if you pick somewhere good, and if you're making a correct purchase at the correct price, hopefully your property will appreciate too. So you will have two returns. Do not just compare, oh, I will just buy a euro bond for 7%. I received this question too common. Well, that's only 7% yield and comes with a lot of bells and whistles, but real estate is different. So of course, I do not like aggressive investment these days, but let's, in short, 4 to 7.5% in these two markets. If you want to explore other markets, that's another thing. Perhaps another webinar would be great for it. So another question, very correct. I love this. How will a golden visa protect me when the banking system is melting down? So I think that's a very solid question. So here is how it works. Basically, if you're based in the West as well, you need to diversify your bases. I have never seen someone being hurt by having more options. So basically, let's start with that. But here is how I would say. Without having a residency in Europe, I don't think from this point on, let's say in 2 years' time, you won't be able to open a bank account in the EU. You absolutely have to have one or other kind of residence. It's already too hard, by the way. And don't get fooled, because some people are saying, oh, the more crisis there is, the more likelihood that they will accept my money. A, you might not get your money from your country to outside. That's number one. B, the the systems, internal systems of the EU and other countries, other safe havens. Canada is one of them as well, by the way. I consider them a safe haven. It will be so tough that it will be very hard to move around. So I would say if you do not have your golden visa, your bank accounts run the risk of being closed everywhere. And it's a problem. Number 3, can I make it for Portugal in time if I start beginning of May? Of course not. You might, but don't wait. If you want to do this, now is the time to start. I am giving everyone a deadline until 25th of April. If you want to do Portugal, then you need to hand over your documents to us. And then we can start multiple processes at the same time. But that's the absolute deadline. So Greece is always open. So if you want to push it up until the 1st, don't and get a Greek golden visa. So it's easy as that. Question number 4. Why are there maps for golden visas now? That's a very good observation. So both my colleagues, Pelim and Nedim, showed maps. It's because golden visa programs are under fire everywhere. Because the more an economy goes bad, people need someone to blame. And who better to blame than evil immigrants causing a surge in prices in real estate or any other thing. So that's why these programs will be like put in small boxes. It will become more and more harder, more difficult to make money in these programs because like I cannot invest there, I cannot invest there. Wherever I'm allowed to invest, there will be a bubble. So the economy will appreciate unreasonably. So that's another problem. So there will always be maps, and it will continue getting worse and worse. So, I mean, at the end of 2025, we may not even see a European program as well. So we run that risk as well. So the other question, can I do some non-European alternatives? Yes, of course. Hello, I'm Turkish. The head office of the company is in Turkey. You can get the Turkish. I'm saying this because the person who wrote the question is not Turkish. So we are in a very interesting place as a company. So Turks are getting golden visas, and people from other countries are getting the Turkish citizenship. So you have the Turkish program, you have Caribbean programs. They're very situationally useful as well, not just as mobility tools, but as very good insurance policies in some extreme cases where your own passport may become toxic. So there are lots of non-European alternatives, and it's case by case. Just like Pelin said, let's do a one-on-one consultation and see if they work for you or not. If you want to go to startup route, you have the UK route, you have the Canadian route. So these are very good programs in themselves. But are you going to commit your time and perhaps more resources? So final one I have, in case more came from others, I think no, but how will the banking crisis affect other countries than USA or the EU? Well, it depends a lot on where you are, but I will be very delicate about this. So if your country has had economic issues for the past 2 years, it could be high unemployment, it could be drastic inflation, it could be a shrinking economy, it's going to hit you harder. And countries have already run into obscene economic problems. Some of them are not like handling it well. But I use a very like comical way to describe what's going on. It's a bar fight, okay? So it's a Wild West bar fight. And some countries will be the guy hitting the head with a glass, a bottle, at the first second of the fight. We already see who those countries are. But everybody is going to get hurt. only the real strong, gnarly guys will walk out unhurt from this. So basically, I think I'm not giving you what you want. I'm usually more toxic when talking about economic risks. But if your country had already trouble, they will have more trouble. Let me just say this. And of course, this webinar will be shared with everyone on the list as a recording. We will share our presentations with everyone who attended. I'm already getting some messages on WhatsApp. Can I have the presentation? Of course. And I'm super happy we had so many attendees today, close to 100. Next time we will go to perhaps 500 attendees. And I really enjoyed it. Nedim and Pelin as well. It's great to co-host with you guys on this lovely evening. And I think if you have any final words, that's it from me. And I'm looking forward to have all our visitors in the next webinar.
Thank you, Ahmet. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance. Hope to see you on the next one as well.
I want to thank everyone who listened to us and stayed until the end. And I am looking forward to meet also with our attendees. And I am hoping to welcome people in Athens also, and hope to see you in our next webinar.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.